The recent implementation of new tariffs on imported goods is set to significantly impact American consumers and businesses, and the implications are worth understanding. As the United States raises tariffs on products from numerous countries, many are left wondering how this will affect their wallets and the economy at large. It has been nearly a century since the U.S. has seen import tax rates as high as those introduced recently. The effects of these tariffs will not be uniform. They will vary widely depending on the specific goods and the countries from which they originate. For instance, tariffs are being applied to products from nearly 70 trading partners, ranging from complex economies like the European Union to smaller nations such as Lesotho. Currently, most exports from these countries are facing a 15% tariff, while certain Asian nations are seeing rates as high as 19%. Other products are subjected to even steeper tariffs, ranging from 20% to 50%. Notably, a staggering 55% tariff on goods imported from China is set to take effect soon, unless a trade agreement is reached. Since February, businesses both in the U.S. and abroad have been grappling with the fluctuating tariffs imposed by President Trump. Many automakers have managed to absorb these costs for the time being, but recent data suggests that retail prices for essential items like groceries, furniture, and appliances have begun to rise. This trend indicates that consumers may soon feel the financial pinch, as tariffs are essentially a tax on imports, and economists predict that U.S. consumers will ultimately bear at least part of the burden. According to estimates from Yale's Budget Lab, the new tariffs, combined with previous ones on sectors like automobiles and steel, could lead to a short-term price increase of about 1.8%. This translates to an estimated loss of $2,400 in income for the average U.S. household. These projections are based on an analysis of tariffs enacted this year and include a planned increase on items imported from India. John Gold, the Vice President of Supply Chain and Customs Policy at the National Retail Federation, expressed concern in a statement, noting that while retailers have managed to keep prices stable thus far, the new tariffs will inevitably lead to increased costs for retailers, manufacturers, and consumers alike. So, what exactly do these tariffs mean for U.S. consumers? Understanding the background. In April, President Trump announced sweeping import taxes on goods from 66 countries, including the European Union, Taiwan, and the Falkland Islands. He characterized these tariffs as reciprocal measures aimed at bolstering domestic manufacturing and ensuring fairness in global trade. Initially, the country-specific tariffs were paused, but a 10% tax was applied to most imports. By early July, Trump began notifying countries that their exports would face higher tariffs unless trade agreements were reached. The start date for these tariffs was recently pushed to Thursday. In addition to these measures, Trump announced a 35% tariff on imports from Canada, while delaying action on Mexico as negotiations continued. However, a free trade agreement established during Trump's first term protects many products from these countries from such tariffs. Moreover, a 50% tariff on goods from Brazil was also introduced, and Trump signed an executive order to increase India's tariff rate on Russian oil from 25% to 50%. This move allows for negotiations between India and Russia with the Trump administration. Other tariffs, such as a 50% tax on imported aluminum and steel, remain in effect, and Trump has even threatened to impose 100% tariffs on computer chips not manufactured in the U.S. Additionally, tariffs on imported pharmaceutical drugs are still forthcoming. The immediate effects on prices. The U.S. Commerce Department reported a 2.6% increase in prices in June, up from 2.4% in May. The Consumer Price Index, a key measure of inflation, also showed a rise in June, particularly in the costs of furniture, toys, and other frequently imported items. Consumers should brace themselves for higher prices on clothing and footwear, as the combined tariffs disproportionately impact these sectors. The Budget Lab at Yale estimates that shoe prices could temporarily rise by 39% and remain 19% higher than COVID levels. For apparel, the figures are similarly concerning, with expected increases of 37% and a sustained 18% rise. Overall, Americans are facing an average tax of 18.6% on imported products, marking the highest rate since 1933. Food and beverage prices on the rise. The tariffs are also likely to drive up food prices, as highlighted by an analysis from the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. The U.S. does not produce enough of certain items, such as bananas and coffee, to meet demand, which will lead to higher costs. Additionally, prices for fish, beer, and liquor are expected to increase. The U.S. Wine Trade Alliance and other alcohol industry groups have warned that a 15% tariff on European wines and spirits could result in over 25,000 job losses and nearly $2 billion in lost sales for the industry. In a letter to Trump, they emphasize the need for toasts, not tariffs, as they approach a critical season for their business. Wine distributors and retailers have managed to avoid price hikes until now by expediting shipments from France and other EU nations. However, with the new 15% tariff in place, consumers may see European wines costing 30% more by September. Automobile prices remain stable for now. While some automakers have already raised prices in response to tariffs, others are holding off. For example, luxury car manufacturer Ferrari has indicated it is waiting for more clarity on Trump's trade deal with the EU before adjusting the 10% surcharge it has placed on most vehicles sold in the U.S. Most automakers have opted to wait for further details rather than immediately passing on tariff costs to consumers, but this could change. General Motors has warned that the impact of tariffs may become more pronounced in the third quarter, estimating that tariffs could cost the company between $4 billion and $5 billion this year. Similarly, Toyota reported a 37% drop in profits for the April-June quarter, largely attributed to the effects of Trump's tariffs. A fluid situation. Despite the numerous tariffs being implemented, the situation remains dynamic. Trump's use of emergency powers to impose these tariffs is currently being challenged in court, with the case expected to reach the U.S. Supreme Court. Furthermore, the tariffs on Chinese goods have yet to be finalized, and consumers may soon feel the effects of the administration's decision to end a tax exemption for small parcels shipped from abroad. Recently, Trump signed an order to eliminate the de minimis exemption, which has allowed shipments valued at $800 or less to enter the U.S. without incurring duties. This exemption has been widely utilized by international e-commerce companies to avoid customs fees. The withdrawal of this exemption began in early April for goods shipped from China and Hong Kong, and it is set to be eliminated for low-value packages from all countries on August 29th. In conclusion, as these tariffs take effect, consumers should prepare for a range of price increases across various sectors. The economic landscape is shifting, and it will be interesting to see how these changes unfold in the coming months. What are your thoughts on the impact of these tariffs? Do you believe they will ultimately benefit or harm the U.S. economy? Share your opinions in the comments.